To the Monday Connection, my name is John McFarland, and I'm here to introduce the speaker, David Rogers. David just told me that he's here because he married the boss's daughter. David married Deborah Butt, and the only daughter of Barbara Dan and Howard Butt. They have 3 children, and he told me he's just graduated to having an empty nest, so we can all congratulate him on that. He's the acting CEO of the H.E. Butt Family Foundation and has been involved with that foundation for 20 years. And he's here to tell us the story of his life with the Butt Foundation. Please welcome David Rogers.
Well, thank you very much. I generally don't accept these kinds of invitations because it's really not been my job. It's always been Howard Butt's job, or the director of Lady Lodge. They're very good at this kind of thing, and I've always been comfortable leading the organization from the background. But I will say, I feel like I ought to have a choir behind me right now. I mean, don't you think it just sets up for some kind of... I am also a little tentative about addressing this group because about a month ago I spoke at Laity Lodge. Now that's a much more comfortable place for me to speak. And one of the committee members of this luncheon, who will remain anonymous, Sissy Warner, came up to me after my talk and said, "David, that was terrific." Puffed up a little bit and she said, "You used every one of your personal pronouns correctly." Well, Sissy, what about my content? She said, "Oh, that was fine, but your grammar was excellent, excellent." It's interesting that I'm speaking here, talking to you a little bit about about being in the business world and how we integrate our faith in daily life. It was 22 years ago that I would have thought I would be here, a young professional trying to figure out how to navigate my faith into a secular business world. I moved to Austin from Mississippi. Mississippi being, of course, the capital of college football right now. While I went to the University of Texas to get an MBA, I still bleed red and blue Ole Miss, hotty-totty y'all. So we'll hold on to it for a week at a time. But I moved to Austin and was in the real estate market for a little while. Y'all remember NPC, Nash Phillips Copus? I worked there and rode the very last boom of that company's work in the mid-'80s. And then I went on to a really great job that I enjoyed a lot with the Chamber of Commerce. I was the director of national marketing. I was working there in the Lee Cook era. Y'all remember Lee? And my colleague from there, who I have not seen, I think, in that same amount of time, Susan Engelking, is here, and that just warms my heart that she would come and be here. But it was a great job. My role was to recruit industry to expand in this great city. For a 27-year-old kid from Mississippi, it was really great to be a part of that. I remember one of the favorite things was, or just a neat thing that happened for me, was Lee Cook called me and said, "David, I trust you enough that if you feel like I need to meet one of the company representatives considering expanding here in Austin, I will stop what I'm doing and come see you. And be with you." And so that was really great. Here I am, a little Mississippi boy, and I control the mayor's schedule. But I got to interact with a lot of executives during that time, and I noticed that I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be one of them, and I noticed they all had an advanced degree. So I went back to school at the University of Texas and got an MBA, hoping to have the vision of becoming a future business leader right here in Austin. But soon after I graduated, I moved And people always ask me, well, how did you get from that dream of being in the Austin business community to working with the H.E. Butt Family Foundations, whose core purpose is to provide opportunities for people to encounter God for the transformation of their daily life, work, and world? And as we just heard, the easiest answer is I've married the boss's daughter. I married up. I married way up. But that's not the only answer. There's a longer answer to that. But I will say this. I've worked with my father-in-law, Howard Butt, now for 22 years. There are a lot of good reasons why not to go to work for your father-in-law. And I addressed every one of them, and he, being a good old HEB sales and marketing guy, handling David Rogers' issues was no problem to him. But I would put up our relationship to any father-in-law, son-in-law relationship that worked together. I believe we've been a model of healthy organizational life for our staff and our constituency, and I think we've been a model of healthy family relationships as well. I just told you our core purpose is to provide opportunities for people to encounter God for their transformation of their daily life, work, and world. Kind of a motto that I've adopted as I've led this organization now has been something I got from a friend, Denise Daniels, who is the dean of business school at Seattle Pacific University. And it's this: messed up people mess up organizations. Messed up organizations mess up people. However, healthy people can contribute to healthy organizations, and healthy organizations can contribute to healthy people. Now, to me, that's what we're all about. We're all messed up. And whatever we can do is providing opportunities for people to have transformation. We're trying to make them healthy, and hopefully they can go back into their organization and make that organization healthy. So if we're not doing it in our organization, it's really hard for us to try to share that more broadly. The longer story of how I got here involves one person, a little girl named Alicia, 10-year-old girl from Houston, Texas. You see, before I said yes to coming on and running the foundation, or working with my father-in-law on the foundation, I promised Howard after I graduated from the MBA program I would come out for a summer and just learn the organization. There was some opportunity for me to help in the youth camp. And this 10-year-old girl, almost the first week we met and just became fast friends. And Alicia, one day during that session, looked up to me and said, "I wish you were my daddy." And that was very special. At that time, I just had a little baby girl, and I didn't know that I could have an impact like that on someone, especially a little girl. Alicia did not have a relationship with her father at that time, and her mother did all that she could to help her. I'll come back to her in a minute. But for me, making a difference in one little girl's life changed my life. And I realized, working for a nonprofit foundation whose mission is to help kids know Christ, whose mission is to help business leaders think about how they integrate their faith in everyday life, I think I can do that. And I think this organization also needs some business skills that maybe I can bring to the table. And so at that time, it was easy to say to Howard, you know what, I'll give it a try. Well, let me share a little bit about our work with the H.E. Butt Family Foundation. I think we're a very unique organization. We're unique in that we're an operating foundation, not a grant-making foundation. 95 to 98% of the foundations out there are grant-making foundations. We, on the other hand, operate our own programs. If we want to start a program, we then try to figure out how to strategize to do it, provide the resources, provide the people, and go about the mission of that particular ministry or program. We are unique in that Deborah's grandparents started this foundation in the early 1930s, a time when most people were thinking about their own personal survival and probably not giving to the needs and concerns of others. Very few foundations in the country were founded during the Depression, and the H.E. Butt Foundation was one of them. We're unique in that we minister to people in all seasons of their life. Whether you're a 9-year-old kid that comes to our free camp program, where 20,000 people, you will use our free camps this year And that was the original reason the Butts bought the property, to provide camping for underprivileged kids. And that is probably the biggest number of people on our property that we give the opportunity for transformation. So the seasons of life, from that kind of a child to a teenager growing in her faith through our Laity Lodge Youth Camp program, to the young college graduate now out in the real world, navigating how to maintain a Christian worldview in a secular world, the soccer mom who's just trying to love their husband and their children fully, to folks in the business community, helping them integrate their faith in everyday life. We are unique in that with each generation of family leadership, we are encouraged to use the past not as a hitching post, but as a guiding post. So let me share some of our legacy mission, including the efforts to encourage and equip ordinary people like you to integrate their Sunday into their everyday, ordinary lives, including and primarily the workplace. But let me share it through a personal story. A few years ago, a woman spoke to Deborah and me and said, "David, Deborah, I pray for your glorious burden." And we had a vague idea what she might have meant by that, but it stuck with us, but we really weren't sure. And then she, a year later, same place, "David, Deborah, I pray for your glorious burden." And so we asked, "Well, what do you mean by that?" "Well," she said, "the glorious part is you stand on the shoulders of your grandparents and your parents. Your grandparents, who during the Depression set out to eradicate tuberculosis in the valley. Because of their commitment to the least of these, they changed the way mental health institutions cared for their patients in Texas. They bought 2,000 acres in the hill country and gave it away so underprivileged children could experience God's natural beauty. They built Laity Lodge as a tool in their son's hands to do his work, his ministry, priesthood of all believers." She continued, "The glorious part is you stand on their shoulders, and you also stand on the shoulders of your parents, Howard and Barbara Dan. Through the Baylor youth revivals of the 40s brought thousands of young people across the South to a personal relationship with Christ. The same group opened the door for the South for Billy Graham to expand his ministry. Howard helped organize the first national prayer breakfast. With Keith Miller and others, he began what we know now as the small group movement, where vulnerability and sharing one's failures as Christians was acceptable. And Billy Graham credits your dad as the pioneer of faith and work movement. He had a vision, your dad, that if he could encourage leaders of organizations to flourish in their own faith, it would change society. One organization, one church, one family, one individual at a time." And the woman looked at Deborah and me and said, "All that is the glorious part. And the burden is you stand on the shoulders of those same four people. So I pray for your glorious burden." And what a glorious opportunity, yet what an awesome responsibility at the same time. So Deborah and I have this wonderful legacy that we use as a guiding post to carry on these principles, and it truly goes back to Deborah's great-grandmother, Florence Butt, who opened the first store in Kerrville, Texas in 1905. Sweeping out from the past tenant, she saw a New Testament over in the corner and saw that as an omen and got on her knees and prayed and gave the business to God to do his work. This thread continued through her son, Deborah's grandfather. In 1924, he wrote his soon-to-be wife, Mary Holsworth, right before their wedding. He was 29. He was the owner of one small store in Kerrville and was just opening a second store in Junction. And he said this, "We have no right to live to ourselves alone. We cannot evade our duty to God and our fellow man. And it is a mistake, even from a selfish viewpoint, to try to do so, for we make ourselves grow smaller and our happiness more limited by doing so. May God grant that our united life may be felt as a great and lasting good in our community. 29 years old. Now there's a man with a big vision, and he's just simply trying to grow a small business. But he's building it to be a lasting good in our community. Not for his glory, but for the contribution to make a real difference. And then there's my father-in-law, who made it our mission in our organization. Listen to this, okay? To renew society through renewal of the church renewal through renewal of the family renewal through renewal of the individual, renewing society. That's a pretty big mission or vision. At a recent retreat, Howard shared with a group of business people. Now, this is going to be my best Howard Butt, okay? How many of y'all have heard Howard Butt speak? Yikes, that's too many. But, so this would be classic Howard Butt. And I say to you, on the authority of the Word of God, the emotional high point of Jesus' life was when he saw the impact of the laity mobilized in his name. So how does David Rogers, a layperson, join that mobilization? In some ways, my life is lived in a holy huddle. I run a faith-based family foundation. I assume our 100 employees are Christians. Most of my friends are Christians. I'm not daily faced with the challenges each of you are in the secular world that is sometimes hostile to faith. For 20 years now, my role has been equipping, encouraging, convening, and supporting people like you in their everyday life. The H.E. Butt Family Foundation and Laity Lodge equips people through the high calling of our daily work website. How many of y'all have gone to that? Through that, Mark Roberts' Daily Reflections. Do we have any people that read the Daily Reflections? So we equip people through those kinds of things. The high calling website is probably considered the top 5 websites for people that are trying to think about how do you integrate your faith in daily life. Also through Howard Butt's radio messages. Those are some of the ways that we are helping people focus on living out their faith in daily life. We encourage folks through a wide network of relationships, not just here in Texas, but all over the country and if not world. School teachers to pastors, moms to young professionals, to store employees to executives in executive suites. We convene gatherings focusing on these issues through Laity Lodge. How many Laity Lodge folks have we got? Yeah, man, you're a friendly crowd. Through Laity Lodge and some of our national outreach efforts that are generally off-the-record forums with men and women of faith in fairly high-level positions in companies around the country, trying to figure out how do you do that appropriately? How do you live out your faith appropriately in a secular business? We also support and partner with other organizations to be catalysts to further the high calling of our daily work. And of course, most of you all know the work that we do in the Canyon, what we call in the Canyon, Laity Lodge, who's been open for 50 some odd years. Many of you have been there. The kinds of retreats that are happening there are really all about faith in daily life, being the priesthood of all believers. Laity Lodge Youth Camp, while it's simply a youth camp, it's teaching these kids about important things that they're going to carry through their whole life. The college kids that come, what do we hire, 300 and something college students every year. What wonderful people that we now get to. One of the things we're doing is we realize in our seasons of life, we were missing the 20-somethings. What an important age group to not miss. You know, you just come out of college and you think, what in the world am I to be doing, and how does my Christian faith fit here? So this whole table actually is helping us in that area right here in Austin. So back to the glorious burden. That conversation was many years ago, and in recent years my in-laws have been less active due to health reasons and just simply their age. So Deborah's 2 brothers have been functioning as our active board. Deborah has 2 brothers that works with her Uncle Charles in the grocery company, Howard and Stephen. Howard runs the Mexico division. I think there's 45 or 50 stores in Mexico. Stephen runs all the central markets. So they have been our functioning board, and they've expressed to Deborah and me recently this: Mom and Dad's chapter has closed. We want and expect you to use the past as a guiding post, but it's your time to be the visionary of this work moving forward. So we've given that a lot of great thought. One of the things that I have done is, it's just my nature, is to make sure I put the right kind of people around me. It's hard to follow Howard Butt. There's so much about him that he's just an amazing man, and I need a lot of good people around me. One of the people that we've brought in recently is a guy named Greg Jones. Greg was the dean of the Divinity School at Duke University. That's kind of a tenured position, and then the president of Duke asked him to come on and be his global strategist. What does Duke need to be doing globally? He did that for a couple of years, but because of the travel was difficult for him, he has been able to look for something else. We met him 2 years ago. He's a brilliant man. He's a good thinker. He works with Deborah and me and just kind of helps to get us the information, just to figure out how it is that he can be of support. And he's basically giving us 80 to 90% of his time, still connected to Duke, but really working with us to further some of these things that I'm about to share. So, the glorious burden has been an older story. And just recently, with the help of Greg and some of these others, we have kind of turned that chapter into that we're calling the glorious legacy. We are adopting these themes moving forward to honor, enhance, and hopefully grow our reach and influence. As for reasons unknown to me, God seems to be allowing our generation more opportunities, more resources than the previous generations to do this work and move it forward. And I will say that is very humbling. Deborah and I have a team at the H.E. Butt Family Foundation, and we're beginning to emphasize these areas. You already know about the work that we do in the Canyon, but we really think there's an opportunity to enhance the experience that people have in the Canyon. That's Lady Lodge, the youth camp, our family camp. Strengthening and nurturing the core programs and the focal practices that characterize those programs. How can you take the 50 years of what's been learned at Lady Lodge out into the world broader than the number of people that we can support just at Laity Lodge? Second thing is to encourage Christian vision for integrated living, grounded in gracious hospitality and vulnerability with a focus on the high calling of our laity. Nothing new there, but just more intentional. That's been what Howard's about. He's given us resources to do more if we can. The third thing is cultivating healthy families and children through a deep sense of belonging, reinvigorating commitments to mental health, back to Deborah's grandparents, and caring for those who are struggling, encouraging healing, wholeness across generations, and nurturing positive family dynamics. And fourth, nurturing the arts, including the natural beauty as a doorway to transformation. Ginger Geyer is here, and she's helped us for, I don't know how many years, Ginger, you've helped us with integrating the arts into everything that we do at Laity Lodge. We hear people coming from all over the world that come to Laity Lodge, just a simple retreat center in the Texas Hill Country, and say, no one else is doing what you all are doing to support and enhance the arts. But we just feel like that's what can happen in the Canyon, but we feel like we need to broaden that beyond what we're able to do out there. So that was the fourth. The fifth is strengthening Christian leaders and their organizations, developing people for faithful and effective Christian leadership that stakes their lives into something larger, deeper, and more enduring. So deeper, wider, and more intentional work in these areas, using the past as a guiding post, not a hitching post. For me, my high calling was shaped by marrying into a family with this kind of rich heritage, but it was also changed by one little girl that made an impact in my life, that made me say yes to this. And I want to catch you up on Alicia. Alicia continued to come through our youth camps, was on staff for a couple of years. She's a very smart young woman, got a full ride to Princeton, finished Princeton. She's a linguist also. She speaks English, French, Spanish, Italian, and Arabic. And I've stayed in her life. She's now 32, and she lives in Washington, D.C., and she called me about 2 years ago. We were just catching up, and she said, you know, I have a dream. I really would like to work in national intelligence. And do you know anybody? And a whole different story. I said, well, I could make a couple of calls. And, you know, really it was her. I just happened to open a door or two. But sure enough, she was able to secure a job in the national intelligence. I'm sure I can't tell you who she works for, or I'll have to kill you, or she'll kill me, or something like that. But she was at Lady Lodge about a year ago, and we were just reminiscing our relationship, and she said, I wish I could get the exact words, but she said, who would have thought that the man I met when I was 10 years old and wanted him to be my dad was the same guy that 20 years later helped me find my dream job. So I think she gave me a lot more credit than I deserve on that. But the point is, it's one person, and you can help change a family and maybe a church and maybe society. So if we profess to follow Christ's teachings, I believe we are meant to be living out in every part of our life. And we can start right where God planted us. And as we go back, it could be with the receptionist that needs to be noticed, a client that you know that's dealing with a personal crisis, a spouse or your family that needs more time of yours and more attention. It could be a tense business meeting that you just know needs a calming agent. And it just starts with one person. It doesn't have to be something big. One person, one at a time, can be the high calling of your daily work. And to close, a friend has shared this with me, Dave Peterson, pastor in Houston, as I think about our glorious legacy. He said, David, just remember this. God is the pioneer that was there before, and He's the perfecter that is ahead of you. So you don't need to be afraid. Thank you all very much for having me. Oh, yeah.
We have time for questions if anybody has any. Ask him anything, I'm sure.
Yes.
Was Laity Lodge the setting years ago, or maybe still doing it for teenagers, high school kids who were
Yeah.
there for your young leadership camp? And see, my son went to some, he said, Mom, it's an HEB place.
So he came out to a retreat. Yeah. So I think one of the places we want to emphasize that I don't think we've been emphasizing much, again, I believe that we reach people in every season of their life. And so we have just started a program. You know, think about it. Every year in our Lady Lodge Youth Camp, 250 college kids that we vet to come and run our camps. And yet we let them go. You know what I mean? And we don't have a way in which to hold on to them, but and then maybe they'll come back when they're old enough to come to bring their family to family camp or Laity Lodge. So we're taking a much stronger effort, and again, this table is part of that effort to begin to be there and live and learn from that age group, because I feel like Howard always was about, if you get leadership to change the way they run their organization, then you're going to change society and change the world. If you get people in their 20s to think about it then and not when they're 45 or 50, then you're making a lot of progress on that changing society one day.
What's the word? Because he's 47 now, and he's the chief of the emergency
I planted her there for that. You know, we got to have somebody that, you know, that's, thank you very much.
I would like to know what you are doing to develop this right out of college situation. Are you having retreats?
Yeah. Yes, gatherings and retreats. When's our next retreat? November the 13th. I don't know who all's part of putting that together in our speakers, but Anja Dahl is kind of leading our efforts in the Tri-Cities of Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. We're gathering groups of people, mostly that we have known through our youth camp, but their friends too, that are struggling with, you know, how do we do this? How can we maintain our Christian worldview in the secular world? And so small group stuff, what? And talking a lot with churches, how can we come alongside of them and partner with them as well?
David, what's the latest on family camp? A lot of people
Yeah.
are not that aware of what's going on.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to share with you all some of the larger, broader things. So maybe I didn't cover some of the things. We, I told you about our mission is a renewal society through churches, families, and individuals. One of the things Deborah and I realized a few years back, golly, you know, we say it in family that we're renewing families, but how should we do that? So we built a family camp, wonderful family camp. One of the sayings in our family is, "Long after cost is forgotten, quality remains." So. So it was a big campaign. I know y'all finished a campaign here. It was a big campaign, and it's a beautiful facility that's going to be there for a long time. Anyway, it's not about the facility. It's about the people and the families that we're able to touch. And I mean, it's going great. It's more. Is that right? It's full. I mean, it's not about that, but I see people leave there, fathers more committed to their families. It's a place that you're unplugged, and so that's kind of what, hey, you need to be unplugged to be able to be a core family. And I just think some of the teaching we've done has been important and good, but I don't think that's the only way in which we're going to be in the next 10 years nurturing families. I think we've got that. That's what we do well as camping, but really we want to do a lot more way beyond the canyon.
We had our first experience this summer at family camp, and that's the reason I'm here today. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. You know, Phil and Gloria, and we had our friends twist arms and have us go, and it's one of the best decisions we've ever made. So it was absolutely brilliant. So everyone that contributed to that campaign, it was amazing.
Thank you. I only have 3 more plants, but thank you very much. Yes?
Do you have training programs for people who might have a great idea about renewing, caring, reading, but don't know the nuts and bolts of how to get something?
When I said something about we want to begin partnering more with other people, other organizations, other ideas, that's what I'm talking about there. You know, Deborah and I, we're okay on time. One of the things we don't want to do is build an organization that's she uses the word that's unwieldy. We don't need that. We don't want to do that. So how do you not do that? Well, it's partnering with and being a catalyst for other organizations that are doing work that are kind of in line with whatever our core is. So we're just getting, Greg Jones, the person I mentioned from Duke, is just getting the strategy of how to then bring these ideas in and see if they fit for us to either be a catalyst, collaborate with, or partner with. Yes?
And we did, your father-in-law did speak here years ago.
Huh.
A number of us, I think, heard it already. My question is kind of inside baseball. So what's the meaning of your title, acting CEO?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's a great. No, it's your family basically. I mean, y'all have been to. Howard.
I could withdraw.
No, I want to answer it. I'm just having a hard time trying to figure out how to answer it. I'm going to say it this way. I know, he is, for all these 22 years that I've worked with him, he is over the top supportive of Deborah and me in particular in the work that I'm doing in his organization. Over the top, way more than I deserve. But he has not been able to let go. And though it's been many years that I've been the leader. It's my respect for him that I'm not going to take the position. Is that right? Thank you.
We have a little gift for David for helping us out here.
Thank you very much.
Something to read.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you all for coming. This was a great event, and David spoke exactly to what the mission of our group is for this event. And if there's anyone else here who would like to join in supporting this event, I'm the committee chair, and we'd welcome to have any other committee members who want to join. So if you are interested in that, please see me. And if we have nothing else, we're adjourned.